Hudson new work information. Mr. Kabuki Danjiro, Japan's #1 hitter, will guide you. First up is Super Bomberman. You can do it!
The definitive version of the 4-player battle on the Super Famicom is finally here.
Push the bombs with the new power grab, kick them with the familiar bomb kick, and you're in a heated battlefield. What's more, bombs will fall from the top of the screen. Jump on the trampoline, tunnels, items. There's a competition. There are a total of 12 types of battle stages with various tricks. You can also play against the computer, so you can enjoy a battle game even if you don't have 4 players. With a total of 6 stages, it's possible for 2 people to play at the same time. Let's have fun with friends and family. This is the ultimate fighting game. The game, Super Famicom and Super Bomberman, will be released on April 28. Quiz Caravan Cult Q. Speaking of popular quiz shows, Cult Q. That's why. In addition, it has 3 modes, and nothing to say. CD Ryotaibu Wo Quiz Caravan Cult Q will be released on May 28. Power Tennis is very popular, the 5th in the Power series. With 3, you can change courts to enjoy fair play, and you can play tennis in earnest with 8 types of balls. Surprising, ultra-realistic. Even if you say yes, it's scary because all the players are live-action shots. It's not that there are more, but the number of players who are better in 2 content increases, and the uniform changes according to the season. That Godzilla and Kazushige-kun are also ordered. Depending on the stadium, the relay broadcast will be projected on the Aurora Vision. For the first time in the Superman baseball game, 4 players can play simultaneously. The Super Famicom and Super Power League will start in summer. Summer starts. CD Denjin, Rockabilly Tengoku. I thought it would come out, but will it come out?
Huh? PC Denjin's complete shop?
Sweet, don't drink, Hudson. Super Nintendo, 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 Super Famicom, 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 Super Famicom. Zapangu's most famous actress, Makizuriho, is Hero in Okuto. There are more than 30 gorgeous voice actors in total. The stage has finally spread to London, the capital of Corino, and the battle scene adopts the first side battle system of Tengai Makio. The variety of events will also greatly excite this world. Oops, don't stand in front of me. Women all over the world are waiting for the love warrior Kabuki Danjiro. I'm looking forward to it. While I'm saying something, Hudson Soft will be the funniest game this summer too.
By Hudson.